Hey everybody, welcome to Simply Cyber Live. I am so pumped for today's show and for you to be here. We are talking cyber resume gold with Joe Hudson. I'm going to bring him in a second, but I just wanted to welcome you. If you're new here, if someone just sent you the link, this is Simply Cyber Live. It's the live companion to the Simply Cyber YouTube channel where we help you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing today, so you're well equipped. We're going to do a ton of Q&A from you guys in the audience. We're going to be roasting resumes, and it'll be constructive criticism. We've got some great submissions from the Simply Cyber community for today. But real quick, if you're wondering if this talk's going to have any value for you, I want to point out that this is not just for people who are graduating this spring with a cybersecurity or computer science degree. It's not that myopic, right? There's so many different stories, and many of you have will identify with this. This is for that military person who's transitioning out of the military and looking to get into the workforce. It's for the person who's a vet who has already transitioned out of the military, but wants to change kind of what they're doing. So kind of that mid-career pivot. And you don't have to be a vet. Maybe you're a sysadmin and you want to get out of the IT side of it and kind of apply those skills and get into cyber. Or maybe you just really don't like your job. You work in a manufacturing plant pressing steel all day, and you want to get a piece of the cyber action. And of course, we're going to be covering those graduates too. So we'll be talking today about all of the different techniques you can use on your resume to highlight all that great skill that you've been doing. Again, your expectations here, Joe's gonna walk through all the common problems, right? A lot of common mistakes people made. Joe is a recruiter and he looks at resumes all day, every day, and he gets people jobs. He's very, very good at his job. There is going to be a live Q&A for probably 40 minutes at least, depending on how things are going. So put your comments below. And once Joe is kind of here and involved, I'll be moderating the Q&A as well. And then one other thing I want to share, I dropped in the comments a link to the Discord server, and I'll be reminding people kind of a room reset as we go. But I'll be giving away a full platform license to Rangeforce. It's a $1,500 value. I'll be giving it away at 4:47 p.m. Eastern time. So during this live broadcast, all you have to do, it's free. You go to the Discord, you join. There's going to be a Simply Cyber section. That's who we are. And under the giveaway, you just click the little celebration icon and you are entered to win, and the system will take care of the rest. So really excited to announce whoever the winner is going to be. Okay, so let's get to the guest of honor real quick. This is Joe Hudson. If you don't know him, I am so pumped that you're going to get to meet him today. And if you know who he is, you know he's a legend. Okay, this guy, all he does is place cybersecurity people into cybersecurity jobs, and he has like a killer hit rate, right? So we're going to bring him on here. Let's get you in here, Joe. Here, let's bring you on. So here he is. Here's the man, Joe Hudson. Joe, thanks for being with us today. Super excited for you.
Hey Jerry, can you hear me all good?
Yeah, you look good. You sound good. We're gonna dig into it. So before we get the resume roasting going, while I tee it up, Joe, can you kind of just share with the audience a little bit about yourself, but also can you kind of tell us like what is the cybersecurity market? What is it right now? Like what is the current atmosphere and situation with cybersecurity jobs and the market in general?
Nice. Well, I appreciate, from my legendary perspective, thanks for that compliment, Jerry.
Of course.
I think if you spend 10 minutes on LinkedIn, you're going to find a lot of dialogue about the problems that are going on. And there's a lot of people that focus on the problems. And I think that there's many things that are conflicting opinions. And that's one of the reasons that there are problems, is that some people have no idea where to get started. I was a career change guy. A few years ago, I taught for 9 years. I taught 3rd and 4th grade, wanted to get into recruiting, and I thought, what do I even put on a resume? I actually had a YouTube, how to make a resume, and I remember coming up with, well, I assume recruiters have to type a lot of emails. I can do 96 words per minute. That was the first bullet on my resume, was I can type 96 words per minute. I really think that there's a lot of misdirection, and people are being told, hey, you really need to cut it down to 1 page. You need to have no more than 2 pages. Hey, you need to have sections for this. All the advice that I would be giving today, it's from my perspective of how I would look at resumes, how I would go through a profile, and things that really jump out at me personally. But take it with a grain of salt, because I think that there's a lot of valuable opinions out there, and I actually lean on others' opinions all the time when it comes to resumes. But the job market's very busy. I don't think I've been asleep before 3 o'clock in the morning in 4 weeks, and it's been a grind. It's very busy. There's a lot of companies, I think, after the pandemic, they really kind of know what they want to do, and so plans are a little bit more dependable. You know, the opportunities are a little bit more proven and really vetted. So, you know, jumping in on topics like this, you might have 1 takeaway, you might have 2 takeaways, but it's a work in progress. It's always a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that. Let me just bring this in really quick. If you are going to do the giveaway, if you're going to enter to win that full platform license, this is what it looks like. You click this button that I've highlighted. Okay, I'll be sharing this throughout, but the Discord is in the show comments or the commentary. So just go in there. If someone can help people who are having a tough time, I'd really appreciate that. So, Joe, what do you think of roasting some resumes, man?
I'll do my best. I'll try to put my constructive criticism hat on here.
Okay, very good.
Thanks for the free advertising, by the way, Gary.
Oh yeah, of course. So here, let me bring it up. This is how we're going to do it. So let's start here. And by the way, special thanks to those who reached out and submitted their resumes to be involved with this particular activity. I've tried to redact all, contact information like phone and email and stuff, but most people wanted their name shown. So let's go in with this first one right here, if that's okay with you, Joe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh, you know what? It opened it as a separate tab. 1 second. Okay. Now, hopefully,
Adrian.
Yeah, this is Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. So let me, I'm going to go full screen so people can maybe get a little bit better look at it. Oh, that doesn't really help here. I can zoom in. Sorry, people. This is a production thing. How do I zoom in on you? All right, we'll figure it out. So I guess, Joe, while I'm figuring this out, can you kind of start talking about like when you get a resume right in front of you, like what is some of the obvious things that it doesn't matter who you are or what your background is that you really should be doing with these resumes?
Absolutely. No, I think that, for what people are applying to, you kind of also have to know what is your audience in terms of, is it an internal recruiter at an organization that may have just very stringent requirements that they have to work with? If someone applies to roles with HuntSource, for example, we're very aware of many types of jobs that we're getting. And so I'm not only going to look for a resume to check off the boxes for whatever they applied to. I'm looking for things that hook me. I can't tell you how much time I've spent responding to people with resumes that definitely cannot get the job they applied to, at least at that point. But I see some real promise and maybe a couple quick tweaks. Honestly, something I don't normally advise, not that it's a bad thing, but putting a picture on it, it's just not something I've usually advised. One of the things that when he sent me his resume, that jumped out. I loved his face. I loved the smile. And honestly, that caught my attention right off the bat. That's the type of thing that you might try. You may have 2 versions of your resume. If you've got a nice smile, maybe throw it on there. I'm probably the least photogenic person I know. And I always kind of look like, I can't even take a selfie without looking like I don't know when I'm taking the picture. I would not be a good fit for something like that. But I remember when Adrian reached out, he had a really thought-provoking message. It was very clear that he was grateful for time. And his resume jumped out as something that caught my attention, but probably had a few things that I hadn't seen before. These Roman numerals, for example, you don't see that too often. It's not a problem at all, but it's something that I probably just wouldn't have seen. And I remember making a few quick tweaks on this one, and he was very grateful. I think we probably have the other copy too, but yeah, kind of going through this, he's got a good, I think, short and sweet summary, and I think that that's really important. I do see some summaries that are, they're 3 inches deep on the page. Not that I wouldn't read them, but I will tell you that I don't think most recruiters or most HR folks are really reading large paragraphs. It's just not really the norm.
Yeah. So Joe, let me interrupt you for a second there and ask. And by the way, if you have questions from the audience, just throw them in the comments, and we'll kind of sprinkle them in as we go. So for a professional summary, what should be the guiding principle? Like, I'm writing my professional summary. Like, I don't have one right now. I just write like I'm looking for a job in cybersecurity. That's what it says now, and it really should be better. What kind of direction should people take on how to write the summary?
It's a great question. I think that one of the hardest parts of resumes is the lack of ability to really inject some humanity, inject some personality into it without coming off as, just not professional. Sometimes I see some wild things that really catch my attention, but I think, I don't know if I would put that on a resume. But I think this, Jerry, really comes down to what is your background and what is your goal? Because if you have, let's say you're coming from the military, or let's say you're coming from a government job and you've got a clearance, right? I get applications all the time from people with clearances, and I have private sector jobs. And my first response is, does this person want to lose their clearance? Are they afraid to lose their clearance? Is this going to be really the right fit? That's the type of scenario where I would advise, if someone has got a clearance and they're going for private sector jobs where you don't need a clearance, put that in the summary. Spell that out for someone looking to transition out of the public sector. That helps to tell a story. If you are a junior candidate, just mentioning that you don't have much experience or whatnot, like one thing that I like about Adrian's here is that he does keep it pretty short and sweet. It demonstrates that he is looking to pivot really into cybersecurity right there in the first line. He does actually mention a few things that you're going to see across the board within security roles. I think that something that he probably could do for a specific application is appeal to that application. One or two things, maybe one success story, a very short and sweet, quantifiable stat that basically directly ties to whatever you're seeing in that job description. It takes 10 to 30 seconds to update it before you apply to that specific job.
Yeah. And, so I've been doing some resume reviews just for some people who have reached out and stuff. And, and I've hired people, right? So I've looked at resumes to hire people. And when I look at the summary, there's two things that I want. I want something that clearly identifies to me, like, what kind of person this is. So like, I typically advise, like, very vague things. Like if this had said IT professional, looking to continue to work in IT, like it's like, what do you want to do? Like networking? Do you want to do firewalls? Do you want to do, field engineering? Like, it's like, tell me, like, own it. And I know you don't want to make it super niche, so then you'd have to rewrite it every job and stuff like that. But that's one thing, is like, tell me what you want and quantifiable for sure. And I'll tell you another thing. This is from a hiring manager perspective. If you say proven expertise delivering on-site and remote technical support troubleshooting, okay, like when you say that you have done something, when I'm reading your resume, as I'm reading through it, if I don't see something that supports something that you said you've done, it's kind of a flag for me. Maybe you didn't document it the right way, but for me, like if you say that you are a, whatever, like a proven firewall administration experience, and then nothing on your resume has anything to do with firewalls, like it's very confusing to me. And it begins to introduce questions of integrity. Not that you might not have integrity, but it's sometimes people embellish or stretch on their resumes, and those kind of flags is what causes those to pop out for me.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I see it a ton, where you see a list of bullet points or something as well, where it's just one word, Splunk, just says Splunk, but it doesn't say anything that you did with Splunk. There's no elaboration on it. What you find in a situation like that, I feel like, just from my experience and really watching my team operate over the years, even before I joined this organization a few years ago, when you have a candidate that comes through and you have a lot of questions about that resume and you're wondering if this is going to be worth your call, you will sometimes instinctively move to the next resume. You might push that resume and say, I'm going to probably call this person, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to dig a lot. I'm going to see if I can go find something much more smacking me in the face as an obvious fit. Now, I think over the years I've learned to not operate quite that way, especially if I see good tenures, if I see organizations I'm very familiar with that have just robust technology environments or a good focus on certain things. But a lot of folks don't have that. They don't have that experience to where they just know that stuff or put in the research. And so when you're applying, just assume the person that's going to first have eyes on your resume, they need you to spell it out for them. The more you can spell it out for them without going 6 pages is probably going to help you out. And so, yeah, I agree, Jerry, completely agree. You got to have some evidence to back it up and a little explanation.
So let me just ask you this: for general architecture of the resume, what are your thoughts around, this much real estate dedicated to contact information, and then the structure of the summary, skills, and then work experience? Do you like that?
Yeah.
Do you not like that? What do you think?
Well, I think that contact information is really not that important unless you're going to get a call. You need to give people like if your page is running over, if you have a 3-page resume where you could have a 2-page resume simply by shortening the header, and shrinking down some of the contact information, spread it all horizontal, if you need to, make a couple tweaks. But, that's an issue that I see where just shrink that down, because that stuff is really, it's not what anyone's looking at. No one's looking at that stuff until we decide we want to give you a call. So making that part pretty is really, it's probably the last thing I would do on a resume is actually put my contact information. I'd build everything else out. I wouldn't even probably write a summary until I've made the rest of the resume. I'd create my profile, I'd create everything in there, and I'd go, okay, what story did I just tell? Now let me reiterate that in the summary and kind of work backwards. I feel like that usually helps a lot. I do that when I reformat everybody's resume. I do that last.
I do that when I write anything. Like it's very difficult to write the introduction or first. You should write the whole thing, and then you can introduce what you're about to tell them because you know what you're about to tell them. So let's do one more comment on Adrian's here, because we do have quite a few to get to. What do you think about, again, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking the things that kind of jump out at me. What do you think about this word block here, and then with a couple bullets separated underneath it?
I mean, I think the most important thing to remember when applying to jobs is I don't want to slap a universal label, but the ADHD nature of people that read the resumes. People say it's 7 to 10 seconds. I mean, it really is, and sometimes it's less than that. And so when you have chunks of sections, it can be a detractor, because someone literally may look at that paragraph and go, well, I can't really scan that quickly. If I scan that super quick, I see one technology that sort of pops out at me. When you have things in bulleted form, I do think that oftentimes it's quicker to scan. I do like that he had a couple supporting bullets underneath, but in a situation like this, pretty quick to tweak it, see if you like the bullets better. Usually I would usually advise more of the bulleted side. Yeah.
And just one last comment on this one, because this is something that I harp on regularly. Like this bullet here, worked on multiple projects, 3, that's good. That's a quantifiable impact statement with more than 300 people. But what was your impact, Adrian? What did you do? I work at a company with 17,000 employees. I mean, that if I managed all 17,000, that's something, so I'm not sure what the impact was of this, but when you're giving bullets to what you did and how you contributed to that employer, think about that when you got the bullets there. All right, so let's jump to another resume here. And just a reminder, we are doing a giveaway. Jump on the Discord. I don't want anyone to miss out on this, okay? It's gonna be hot, giving away a full range force platform. The Discord should be in the comments of the chat here. So if you don't have it, put it in the comments and I'll drop it again. All right, so let's do more resumes here. And we had a question too from the group. There's 2 questions here. One, Bala asks, what if you have a gap year, whether you went to Europe and backpacked, or, you're a stay-at-home mom and you took 4 years off, or a stay-at-home dad, you're Garth Brooks, and you took 7 years off. What do you recommend for addressing that, Joe?
Great question. I really think that depends a lot on what was the experience before the gap, because let's say you managed a bar, right? And then it's time to, you've got a kid. There's no better reason that I can ever think of, personal experience growing up and as well as my wife. If you have a child that you need to take care of and you have to quit work to do that, I can't think of a better reason to take off work. Now that is a gap that people are very afraid of. I say embrace it head on. There are many ways though that you can address it. Very short, very simple. But what you need to do is you need to highlight the stuff you've done since then, or what you were doing during that gap that is applicable to your search. Even if it's the training, if it's personal training, there are different ways that you can actually talk about some of the personal training, the networking, the groups that you participated in, any of the studies, even if you did not take a certification or anything like that. But you want to build that towards the top. You want to have that gap sort of hidden. I think a lot of times you might be able to format your resume to where the whole first page, you don't see the gap. And then maybe the second page, it kicks off on the gap. By the time someone scrolls down, they may have already forgotten what year your previous job actually said. So they may not even notice the gap. But you also never know what is going to resonate with the audience. There could be an HR person or recruiter that literally just got back from 6 months of maternity leave, or also is just itching to take a sabbatical and go see the world. They see that. You never know what's going to resonate. And so it's not something to hide away from, especially on the tail end of a pandemic. Really not the tail end, it's still going on. But last year, game changer for what people were going through, different excuses that or reasons for why people were not working. It's much more acceptable, I feel like, right now. So it's not something to necessarily shy away from, but not something to lead out with either.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Joe. Great points. So now we've got Nick Ashley. Hopefully Nick's in the audience.
Nick's awesome.
So Nick's got a military background here, so we can see some Army National Guard, 2009 to present. So I guess, high level, we're looking right at the resume. There's a lot of, personally, that's a lot of real estate. Again, I don't know how you feel, but like, I like to keep, if you look at my resume, it's like my name and then like the narrowest margin of my email address. And then it starts with the content. So, I guess the key takeaway is if you're trying to like move stuff around on your resume to make it tighter for 1 page or 2 pages, don't sleep on the header, because there's a lot of room there to be messing with.
Well, alternatively as well, Jerry, like Nick, say someone actually checks out Nick's LinkedIn page or whatnot, you're going to see a guy that's very dedicated to networking and he's very active on LinkedIn. If you are somebody that's very active, you've got a lot of posts, a lot of dialogue and interaction with different groups, I definitely recommend putting your LinkedIn page on there, because that can be a big plus. So if you have GitHubs, if you have these different resources that show your character, that could be the best way to actually capture someone's attention, especially if you're, the rest of your experience is not necessarily speaking to it. So I think that in certain situations, if you're very active, definitely do it. But I see some GitHubs and whatnot that are on resumes, and I click on it and I'm like, well, you don't really have anything in here, or there was a section for certifications and there's no certification in there. If you don't have the goods for it, I agree with you, Jerry. But if it's good content, put that in the front. You never know if that's the key there.
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this too. First of all, I want to point out, I really like this line right here. I can't highlight it for some reason, but like basically CISSP, CompTIA, Sec Plus. I don't even have to read his resume. Like the first thing I know, I've already established certain expectations of who this candidate is. I know that he's got at least 5 years of cyber experience, right? And I know he's got a master's, so he's he knows how to learn, right? Like I can teach this guy, because like you don't just get a master's, like they don't just hand them out, right? So, I like that particularly. Now, what's interesting here, and just as an FYI, I do see some of the questions coming in about when you don't have work experience or you're a new graduate, and we're going to get to that in just a minute here with another resume. So don't think I'm ignoring your comments here, y'all. Okay, so what do you think about this, Joe? When Nick basically launches directly into work experience, there's no summary, there's no skills, and they might be later on in the resume. But for structure, what are your thoughts around foregoing that and going right for work experience?
I usually typically advise some sort of summary. If my wife was in a bar and I didn't know her yet, I wouldn't just walk up and hand her a drink. I'd probably talk to her a little first and give her a little clue of who I am. And Nick's such a friendly, charismatic guy. He's kind of robbing himself of putting, kind of telling his story. especially since, he's coming from a pretty unique background. I definitely usually advise a quick summary, of some sorts, something that articulates what you feel you're really strong at. Your interpersonal skills. It's very tough to really highlight that in any part of a resume, but addressing certain things like that, and then articulating kind of your goals, your objective. Because if he's looking for, say, a pen testing role, I wouldn't know that, especially since it's master's degree, CISSP, Security Plus. Whatever he's looking for, that's really what that's your shot. Eminem, the great philosopher Eminem, he said, "You only get one shot," and that's your chance right there.
Yeah, it really is that's a really excellent point that, obviously he's an accomplished security person, but I don't know, I'd have to invest time and energy to get to understand what kind of security practitioner he is. And I hate to say it, it's so true, but like people just want to, like, they want it to be easy. They want it like be spoon fed. Like, here's what I am, here's what I do. And if you want more information, because I've hooked you, right? You got to have that hook. Then you can look below and get more detail on me. And I really think that's what the summary is supposed to do. The summary is supposed to be like the teaser that whets your appetite to make you want to eat the whole meal. It's the amuse-bouche, right? Or the app, or whatever you want to call it, to get all French up in here. But anyways, like, definitely good stuff. Any other thoughts when it comes to military? Because I want to jump to some other resumes and be quick on it.
The main thing that I see that gets in the way of resumes from military backgrounds is the terminology that's used. Oftentimes, the terminology that comes through, I mean, I've never been in the military. Some of it's kind of foreign to me. So some of the jargon, especially if you're part of a official program, or if you're coming from a kind of a military operation on the government contracting side, and you're speaking about missiles and certain products or whatnot, unless you're applying to similar jobs that are with those types of environments, that stuff it can be a distraction. It can be a detractor. One thing that I think Nick did really well here in the top is this is relatively generic information that can apply to pretty much any environment. The one thing I would change here, I would take part-time off, not because it's necessarily, they don't need to know that. The point of this resume is to get me to call you. If I call Nick and he's an awesome guy, he's got great experience, and he goes, "Hey, by the way, that National Guard role is part-time." There's so many people that would not know National Guard is part-time, and they're going to go, "Oh, that's great. Let me call this guy." Let him tell, let him tell him that on the phone. But I would take anything off that could make someone pause to call you.
Yeah. So as I pull up the next one, Joe, I got a question coming in here that I is relatively good. So, John's basically saying, from your experience, Joe, is there a particular industry that's more open or more friendly to, basically people with zero work experience? He said fresh graduate. It may be different for people who are pivoting from like a job that isn't IT or isn't, security or something like that. But can you speak to that while I get the next resume teed up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of an easy answer, but I think larger organizations tend to have either programs set in place to train people up. They have dedicated allowances that can go towards training. When you have a smaller organization, a lot of times you need somebody that can wear a lot of hats, and that's really tough for someone that's maybe never even paid their own electricity bill yet. they're trying to go into a workforce and be a do-it-all. So I do think that larger organizations, consulting's changing because of the lack of travel, but that's usually a great place to grab fresh graduates, because they're much more able to travel. They're much more able to get in there, and they have the ability to kind of learn on the job as opposed to being responsible for client communication or reporting. So larger companies, I just feel like are better. The financial world right now, that could be a tough one. A lot of these banking organizations, they have pretty high expectations, highly regulated. So I think looking at some organizations, when you look up some of their training programs, some of their junior programs, I know a lot of clients, though, they don't publicize this stuff. So it does take a few minutes. If you see a job that looks good, maybe hop on LinkedIn, see if there's some people. Type in, recent graduates, type people that were hired recently to see if they're actually hiring. And once you know that, then you've got yourself a little list that you can start to put together. But unfortunately, these companies are not necessarily just pushing that stuff out there. And I really wish that they could and would. It's something that I spend a ton of time doing, just trying to connect with internal recruiters at all kinds of companies saying, hey, do you guys have a program for this? I am happy to steer you resumes, no strings attached. I'm just looking for a place to help some of these entry-level candidates.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Thanks, Joe. And by the way, just it helps with the algorithm and the metrics. Hit the like button if you guys are enjoying this. I'd appreciate it. It promotes it so other people can find this content and be able to get the same lessons learned from Joe here. So, Joe, now we're looking at a this candidate is a junior IT security officer. I'll zoom in a second, and he's a recent graduate. I think a 2019 graduate. So, he's got some good stuff on here, but, kind of a different situation, a different person. And it says 1 of 4. So, okay. So he's also included his certifications as part of his resume package. So I guess before we dig into his resume, what are your thoughts on including evidence of your certifications? In addition, most people just write it right here on your resume. He's actually gone ahead and proven the validity of that. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely don't think that hurts at all. It's not something that I have to pay much attention to or that I could get lost in. It's a quick scan. Cool, great. Now I can see that this guy's dedicated. He's actually accomplished a pretty good amount here in the last 2 years since graduating. It's not something that I think is necessarily a plus or a minus. That's your own personal opinion, if you want to. I do believe there is the potential for there to be some technical issues if you submit an application, especially if it's a Word document through some of these applicant tracking systems. I have heard stories about that where people have submitted 10-page packages with a 2-page resume, don't get any traction, but also just get instant responses that they're rejected. Sometimes that can be a sign that there was some sort of just technical hiccup along the way as you were applying.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I always think that listing it in your resume, like right here on the right, is sufficient. I'll believe that this is legitimate. And if I call you and then we interview and you are CCNA or you're claiming to be CCNA and you literally don't know anything about networking, then maybe I'll double check it or but for the most part, I find that this is sufficient. What are your thoughts, Joe? First of all, I just want to point out that I kind of like how interesting this resume looks. Like, I want to stop and look at it. It's visually appealing. What are your thoughts about, you see how he's done this color boxing right here? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Are you going to print this out and then it's going to look weird and use a bunch of your ink? Or what are your thoughts when people start doing interesting things with layout?
Well, I think it's tough to show personality in a resume a lot of times, and when you have an approach like this is a pretty cool and different. It's a pretty cool and different option. This is something I agree. You kind of want to dive into it. It does catch the attention. There's different formats that you can find online that mirror this sort of structure, and you can sort of shape the sections how you want. I also like at the bottom where he's got the quantifiable sort of measurable skill set. This is how strong I am with that. If you're a junior candidate, I do feel like that can be pretty helpful. It is showing that you're also taking an effort to not say, hey, I'm an expert in this. I'm a 4 out of 5 or I'm a 3 out of 5 on this. I think it actually shows some humility, and that's a pretty good way of just giving some insight into your personality. Now, on the flip side, there's a lot going on here. So I could see some audiences just being like, well, this is a lot to dive into, but I personally think this is a pretty cool looking resume. I've seen plenty like it. I definitely give it my time. It sort of forces you to look at it all because you can't just scan down really quick and scroll through stuff and just skip stuff. It's all right there and you're kind of moving laterally. So it's different. I like it.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Joe. And just so people know, we actually have 3 resume templates that are designed for different types of professionals looking to get a job in cybersecurity. I put the link in the comments. It's in the description if you're on YouTube, and I'll put it in the comments in another second. And you can download those for free. They came from Joe. We'll look at them later. But one question that a lot of people are putting in the chat here, and I really wanted to talk about it, is you can see here, Jose has highlighted his own personal projects and labs. And this is something that people struggle with. It's like, I can't afford to go get a bachelor's degree. But I am a crackerjack pen tester because I have built out these labs. I have done all of the free resources that I found at simplycyber.io, right? I've done all of this and I am a stellar candidate, but I don't have work experience, so I can't put that there. I don't have education. I can't put that there. How do I highlight my home labs and my hack the boxes, my range forces, my web goats? Like how have you seen candidates successfully communicate that, professional development? And maybe it's like this too.
Well, I mean, I think that this example is really good. It hits you right in the mouth as soon as you open the resume. I think, Jerry, you have two choices. One, put it on there. Two, don't put it on there. You don't put it on there, they're not going to know you do it. There are so many managers I've talked to that are begging for this stuff. They're begging. Find me somebody that I know is going to go home and tinker with this or has the capability of actually putting this technology into their home environment and practice it. You find me that's going to be a great fit for this role. Meanwhile, the job description that they're applying to says must have 2 years of experience with this. Well, guess what? Maybe this guy does have 2 years of experience with it. It doesn't say you have to have 2 years of professional. There are ways around this, but this to me is the difference maker of 2021 and 2020. I mean, this is where there's so many people that are coming out of school or they're transitioning. I know people that have 15 years of experience and they're still trying to transition in security, and they're already security professionals, but they're having a hard time, for example, getting away from access management and going on to digital forensics. Mm-hmm. And that's their true passion. This is your shot to showcase that. And I do think it makes a big difference. It resonates with so many people I've talked to over the years. There are many ways to spell it out. I think the more information you can put in there and still make things fit, the better. Don't just put, that you've got firewalls. I have firewalls, or don't just put that I have 3 systems or whatever. Like, put our servers. Spell some things out, because I think nerding out, so to speak, in this section is where you can show a lot of creativity and ingenuity.
Yeah, thank you. And just for two things. One, from a program note, I see some people on LinkedIn asking me to put the link for the shared cyber resumes. For some reason, the platform I'm using won't allow me to comment on LinkedIn. So please just go to my YouTube channel. If you Google like Simply Cyber, or go to YouTube and type in Simply Cyber, it'll come up and you can get into the live stream that way and get access to the cybersecurity templates. Now, one other thing that I want to point out that I love about this resume, and I didn't look at this until right now. When I'm 41, I've been working for a while. I've hired people and stuff, right? Like, when I look at a resume, I'm already pre-programmed to think I'm going to see skills, I'm going to see education, I'm going to see experience, right? Like, I'm already programmed. So when I look at this, skills, education, without even reading this, I already assume it's work experience. And I literally, when I looked at it, I skimmed right over it and started going in here. This reads and looks like work experience, right? I mean, it's yep. Honestly and genuinely reflected what it actually is, but there was no judgment. There was no prejudice or anything beforehand going into it that this isn't work experience. I was just like, yep, this is going to be something that he has done that demonstrates his capability based on experience. So it's almost like a hack, really. It's very cool. But just from a person who reads resumes, not as often as Joe, but I skimmed this and saw the words work experience here.
I agree. And you can tweak those words. It says personal projects and labs. You can put security projects and labs. Gives you an excuse to just throw the word security in there again. Yeah. You can tweak that all the time. You can put, professional training if you're doing the range force stuff. You can have a section on range force, HackTheBox. You can have affiliations. I've got a group here in Charlotte called the Queen City Skitties. These guys are great. They get together once a month. They're doing HackTheBox stuff. They're creating tools that are versions of other tools, and they're demoing these for each other. You can write a whole paragraph about that, and it's just spelling out, what do I do in my free time? But at the same time, you can structure it as though it almost looks like work experience. And when people are skimming this for 5 seconds, they might not catch that that's a personal project and that, hey, this guy looks great. He's actually a SOC analyst. It says so right there, range force SOC analyst. They might have no idea what range force is and think that's a company that they're actually, working for or whatnot. So
Yeah, it's brilliant. I really like this resume look, feel. It's just, especially if you're looking at lots of resumes, having one that's visually appealing is refreshing.
The only thing
So
I would recommend with his is the summary, because it basically just reiterates something we've already seen, where it says, I have a bachelor's degree, and it says I have a bachelor's degree, and then literally 1 inch below that, there's his bachelor's degree. I think that's a chance where he can really showcase the personality we see across the rest of the resume.
yeah, definitely. And he's done that SOC analyst training. If that's what he wants, you could say like, like trained as SOC analyst with, intention of trying to achieve an entry level SOC opportunity or something like that.
Right. Recent, just mention it was recent experience, I mean, it's a good fun resume though.
Yeah, I like it. I'm looking really quick at some of the questions, because I like doing the question while I do the back end stuff and get the next resume teed up. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. So Paul Rogers is asking, what's the best way to pivot from a sysadmin to a cyber role, and how to edit your resume accordingly? And I feel like this is a common, use case, right?
Yep. Yeah, I don't think that there's necessarily one answer for this, but I do know that in every position, every sysadmin role's got some things that touch on security. There are a lot of, for years, I was working sysadmin roles and I had no idea what I was talking about. I mean, truly didn't even know what I was supposed to be looking for. I would have just digested all this information and just said, well, what do I do with it? If someone spells it out for me that they are actually, maybe they're working to support the security team, what you want to do is I think you want to look for excuses to plug in anything that connects to cyber, even if it's being part of the organization. You don't want to oversell that you did something. You want to talk about what you were part of, but any excuse that you can. And then you take those bullet points and you maybe move those closer to the top of the section. The point, remember, is to get a call. It's not to get the job with your resume. It's to get a call. And so you want to make sure that you're not assuming people know what you do, that they know what your job is, and they know that it can be connected, because that is absolutely a transition so many people have made from that role to cyber. Anything that you're doing that touches on security, whether it's the tools, whether it's different processes or frameworks, or anything to do with the networking side, there's a lot of opportunity to plug in some of those buzzwords that are either being caught in the applicant tracking systems or just by the eyes of the recruiters. But there's usually great opportunities to plug that stuff in.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And just a reminder, in 3 minutes, we're going to be drawing the winner for the full Rangeforce platform. So a couple minutes left for you to jump in there. Right now, we have 55 people submitted. Hopefully, it's one of you, and we can celebrate all together. But good question. So let's pull up the next one, Joe. Here, let me.
That's a pretty fantastic giveaway, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty excited. It's a good platform, and it's really, I mean, it's $1,500 value. And I hope whoever wins it is able to leverage it to get all that training and then document it in their resume using the tools and techniques that you're sharing with us today, Joe. Mm-hmm. So this is Sarai or Sarai De Leon. She's in Dallas. And this is, I want to say, well, here, I'm not really sure what her background is, but I think she's relatively young to the workforce, maybe junior analyst. So, but let's just treat this one as a cold, no background, no nothing. This shows up on your desk. What are you looking at, Joe?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a bit. I mean, I like that she comes right out with her objective, and really says, hey, this is what I'm seeking. That's not something I think everybody should do all the time, but she's got a lot of personality in the paragraph. I really think that this paragraph does a good job of articulating what she's done, what she feels really capable of without overshooting. And then you've got these very readable bullets below. Some of it touches on the cyber side. Some of it touches on other intangibles like the bilingual ability, the military veteran background. But these are not things that are saying, this is who I am or whatnot. It's in there and it's kind of part of the DNA, but she's really spelling it out. This is what I'm looking for. This is the experience I've had already. And it kind of jumps right into all the relevant training, the technologies, maybe, and I guess that's just some of the certifications. But those are things that, obviously are going to support what she's trying to do. You scroll down if you don't mind. I see some of the rest of the experience. Right. So if you look at that, she's done a good job here because there's some of this information is relevant, but if you go to the next page, she did a good job of starting off page 2 with the unrelated stuff, and I think having that on page 2, great idea, to be honest, just because you get to absorb the security nature and all the wholesome goodness of what she's trying to target on the first page. That could be enough to get a call, to be honest.
Yeah, and I know it's completely unfair because it's not about the content of it, but I will just say the fact that she starts the second page with a clean section, like if this last bullet was the first thing on this page, that would look bad. And it just, I don't know how to explain it, but it would be sloppy. And then you start kind of saying like, well, is this the kind of work this person's thinking? So, yeah, I definitely agree. So what about this now, Joe? What about this? Now, this, for what it's worth, this may be a formatting issue because I zoomed in on it. But if this was her resume, you see this huge chunk of white space here.
Yep. I mean, that's just a margin error. I see it all the time. People just not lining things up. I see people using the space bar or they use the right side to move things over. I always just tab, because you can tab to the exact same spot on no matter what line you're at. It's very in line. It's appealing to the eye. But when you have something like that, she has literally an entire line dedicated to the number 2012. No reason for that. This is clearly just like a little small editing mistake, but a good reason to send your resume to someone else, let them catch it. She's got 2 lines basically dedicated to 8 total digits. Very easy to fix that.
Nice. So real quick, I do want to announce the winner of the Range Force full year. It's OG Smooth. I'm not exactly sure who that is, but if you're on the stream right now, drop it in the comments. Congratulations. Connect with me on Discord and I will get you what you need to get access to that platform for a full year, all modules on Range Force. It's super sick giveaway.
Game changer.
Oh my God. Yeah. So Joe, let me pull up a question. I saw one come in from a friend of mine, Mike German. So I know. So as I pull up the next one, I'm actually gonna bring up some of the templates that we're giving to the audience for free to use, because since you designed them, I want you to provide context on who might use which one and what's the power and the benefit. But so the question while I do the changeover is from Mike, and basically what this says is, you work in IT and you want to switch into cyber. Is it more, and you've done personal projects, would you highlight your experience because it's IT and that's professional work, or would you highlight your security stuff first? How would you structure, because you're going for a cyber job, but the IT experience is what you got?
Good question. I also think that's you're gonna have different scenarios. So for example, if the job that you're transitioning from is at least connected, and you've got some good stability in that job, potentially, then that's still something to really probably maybe lead off with. But let's say you're here in Charlotte, we're the number 2 contracting city in the country. If you have 5 contract jobs over the last 3 years, and most of them are not, relevant, I wouldn't lead out with that. I would definitely focus on the stuff that's going to be relevant for the job you're going for. And it's going to be, really to the point. Whereas if I have to shift through a story that I'm trying to figure out of why did this person jump around, or why would this person be making a transition, or why would this person even apply to this role, and I have to scroll all the way to the second or the third page to find that this person's been dedicated for the last couple of years on cybersecurity training, research, projects, networking, I may never get to that page. So if you think that your experience is pretty well connected and does tell a good story, you may want to lead out with that. But if you don't feel like that's what's going to catch the attention, or if it's something that actually is really not a strength for your background, for what you're going for, absolutely would lead out with the projects. You want to catch their attention to keep them reading, and then let them make the decision for themselves. But what you don't want is someone to never even read that you did that experience because they stopped scrolling, through other things that are unrelated.
All right. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Here, I want to bring up one quick thing here. We do have the winner, but there was promise of roasting Stefan today. Okay, like that was part of the pitch. Stefan, thank you. And Stefan was partially involved in the actual organization of this event, right? So thank you, Stefan. So Stefan sent me his resume over, and I was like, oh, like putting on the lobster bib and getting all greased up because I was going to roast this thing and just tear it down. And it ended up, this resume is excellent. Okay.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I was going to say, it's tough to roast it.
So we couldn't roast it. Okay. So, whatever, 45 seconds, Joe, if you want to call out some nice things he did or key things that people should take away and implement in their own.
Yeah, well, I think when the objective is something that's maybe if I'm going to say, hey, build something out. But when you say you have 10 years of experience trying to move into a junior position, why? Why would you do that? I see a lot of training. I see a lot of focus. This is clearly a security focused resume, even though some of the experience is not saying that's, really the background. To me, this really spells it all out. But the summary definitely, I think, could use some more. There's a couple little things that maybe could do some tweaks, like the example, other skills. It says teaching at the end. Teaching what? Teaching who? You have a chance maybe to elaborate on that. And if you don't know how to elaborate on that, take it off. But I think the certifications, they're very obvious. And for someone with his experience, if you have a lot of these certifications and you've got the skills, but the experience behind it doesn't necessarily match, absolutely lead out with the certs. Lead out with the tools and the terminology that people are looking for on the buzzwords. I assume this is probably a bit of an older resume, but it says January 19. Obviously, we're a little beyond that. And so let's say this was a real resume and someone had that gap and you've got that experience there. This is where you may want to reformat it so the whole first page is dealing more with some of the skills, the cybersecurity topics in the project. Maybe you start off the second page, with a job, and people may have forgotten. Oh, I didn't even read that this guy wasn't working since 2019. Different scenarios for different folks, but yeah, he's got his projects, his home lab. That's a section where you can move your education and your projects to the first page to really fill some of that space. If you wanted to start out the second page with, kind of the work experience, but I mean, here also green card holder, big topic. Oh my goodness, when you get recruiters that get a resume and they go, I don't know if this person's a green card holder or a citizen, I'm not going to call them because I don't feel like going down that path. That's an awkward conversation. It's not awkward for most of us, but there are so many recruiters that will not call you because they think something. If you spell it out for them to eliminate that doubt, I promise you, it's a big help for a lot of people.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah. And great job, Stefan. Obviously very well accomplished. I love it.
Yeah. Sorry we couldn't roast this better. I mean, you could probably capitalize some words here and there if I can put my English major to the test.
I'm not sure how I feel about Arial font over, sans serif, Stefan, but so congratulations to Shaba for winning the thing. We've figured out who it was. Well done. And I'll connect with you on Discord. So real quick here, this is a good question you probably get often. One page or X pages? What's the industry perspective on one page versus multiple pages, Joe?
Great question. I hate this topic in the sense that people feel like there is one rule. I hate that. There's absolutely no rule. There's no rule that says you have to have 2 pages. What you need to understand though is, like, say you're entry level, or say you have 0 experience. You probably can tell your story on 1 page. And if you can tell it on 1 page and say an inch or 2 on the second page, I do recommend trying to figure out how to get it to 1 page. But I think I sent you an example resume the other day where this guy had crammed everything onto 1 page because he wanted to meet that rule, and he had cybersecurity projects or coursework. Right, the coursework is really all he has to expand on. That is a great opportunity to just say, you know what, I'm not going to put pressure on myself to build this into 1 page. I'm going to expand on this. I'm going to see how long this runs. And if it runs to 1.5 pages, I think that actually looks still very good. I mean, you have to be able to tell the story though. And if all you're saying is that I took, networking and I took, security operations as a class, that is a great opportunity. What tools did you use? What was your job in there? Did you, deal a lot with noisy alerts? Did you get a chance to actually feel what it's like to have the burnout that can come with it? I mean, absolutely do not feel that if you are not telling the story on 1 page, move it to 2 and feel fine about it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I've always been a fan of, you don't want 6, 7 pages. That's kind of silly, but like if you have 2 pages worth of content that you need to share, then make it 2 pages, like, but to me, the first page, the top, the summary, that's got to be done well. Because if you got 1 page or 2 page, if you hook me, I'm going to want to look at all of it. I want to know who this candidate is.
Right.
So don't be afraid. Don't be shy. I feel like 1 page resume is like, your 1950s IBM kind of rules, and where it's 2021 and we're changing the
Right.
we're changing the rules, man. So Joe, I've got the 3 resumes that folks can download for free. Please download these and take them, archive them off, and pull them next time you want to find a job. Which one do you want to pull up? We've got the short, the long, and the home lab one.
Oh yeah, let's go to the short one first, because that's what I was talking about. So the short and the long one, these are the same profiles, same resumes, but done to where what we were just talking about, where you're taking a bunch of information and trying to cram it, and then figuring out a way to also elongate it and still tell a story. I just think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, to where I'm getting resumes and I can tell that they literally are running out of white space. There's no way to stretch the margins more. They're all the way top to bottom. And what ends up happening there is there's usually a lot of content built into that 1 page. Whereas if it's spread out, you give yourself a little bit more room to kind of scan. It's just tough to scan a really jam-packed 1 pager if it's top to bottom text, just for the sake of getting into one. But this one here, you can see like the summary, it's all kind of compact. I do think that it does spell out really, hey, here's my active involvement in different security groups. It's talking about specific areas of expertise that this person has got. But then we have to look, do they actually have that below? Are they going to have evidence to support it? You go to areas of expertise, to be honest, I don't know if I would read that. I'd scan it quickly, but that is going to be tough to really zip through. I feel like when you're talking about areas of expertise or technology, these are things to not necessarily just jam pack together, because oftentimes those are the buzzwords that register with people.
Yeah, and is it true, like, how they talk about the scanning system that scans resumes and looks for keywords? I mean, I feel like that's what that section is really trying to address, right?
Yeah, very likely. I mean, those systems they're hit or miss. There's some that I really don't feel like most people like the format when using those. Like the hiring managers don't like it. The HR oftentimes doesn't like it, and recruiters don't like it. Candidates hate it. People like myself hate it, but we all still use it. A lot of it's a compliance thing, for when people can actually set up interviews or whatnot. But you do need to pay attention to it. It's something that, especially if you're applying to big companies. Smaller companies very likely has eyes on the screen checking your resume out themselves.
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out, I know that this is a sample template that people can edit for themselves, but having something like this, I always see stuff like this, and it says secure messaging communication, and I always look at that and think, whatever. Here, let me fix this. Whatever it is, I always look at it and say, like, man, that's like kind of some wasted space. Like, what did you like? Does that mean that you know how to use a cell phone, or did you configure the back end? Like, are you doing encryption? Like, what does this mean to me?
Put my hand over my phone while I text, and no one can see it.
Like, it's such an opportunity to highlight what you have done or what you have experience with, even if you're not really good at managing Palo Alto firewalls, but you have some experience with Panorama. Don't write firewall here, write Panorama. You know what I mean?
Very specific, very specific. Yeah. Especially if the job description you're applying for also mentions that technology. If you have it and you don't put it in your resume and the job description that you applied for, ask for it, I'm not going to say you don't deserve to get a call back, but you are clearly missing an opportunity to pitch yourself and say, hey, I am a match. Call me.
Yeah.
Less ambiguity, the better.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, I want to take a question from the audience, because this is something that I've recently done on my resume. So what do you do when you have 25 years, 30 years of experience? You're not going to put 6 pages together just because you have all that experience. What do you recommend people do? And I hope what you're about to say lines up with what I did on my resume when I updated it last.
Well, I can tell you that it's a thing that I think that there's a stigma on in the market, and people feel that there's a stigma, at least, when they're applying. I always recommend, for example, say you're an order candidate, say you graduated college in 1988, take that off. Don't let anyone judge you before they get to know you. Don't let anyone be able to come up with some idea in their mind that you're too old for this job or whatnot. Take the date off of when you graduated. I usually recommend taking off a lot of the experience unless you're going for some of these really strong high-level leadership roles. Because if you're going for, say, a director role or a senior director role and you've got 25 years of experience, that makes sense. But you don't need to show all 25 years of it. But you also don't want to say, well, I'm going to cut it off at 10, and the first role that you have actually on your resume in 2010, you're a senior analyst or something like that. Don't be afraid to tell your story, but anything over like 10 to 12 years, I would say, you don't need to write a book about it. Put 2 to 3 bullet points that really tell someone the value you added. If it just helps to really connect the dots for how did you progress through your career. Maybe go back 15 years, and each one of those, you've got the company with the dates, you got the job title, 2 to 3 bullet points summarizing the best of the best, but make sure that those bullet points, if you can appeal to the progression of what you're applying to and it's relevant. Don't put something like led a team of 4, like spell it out. What did they do? What was your role for it? Whatnot. But absolutely, I get 15-page resumes sometimes. I will literally delete 9 pages of that and say, hey, I didn't do too much work for this, but I did get you started. I'm going to send this back and you might want to make a couple tweaks. We got it down to 6,
Yeah, yeah. And I'll just tell you, like, a technique that I used for better or worse read is, like, basically when I got to the bottom of my second page, I was in my like 2009 time frame of job opportunity. So I just put one line item that said 2004 to 2009. I had like basically 3 different jobs or progression, but whatever. So I put between this period of time, I just wrote a bullet that said, like, worked at 3 companies taking on progressively increased level of responsibility within software engineering and cybersecurity.
Yep.
It's
perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, because really, like, everyone knows that 20 years ago, you were a different professional with different experience and stuff like that. So it's not truly important to the hiring manager or to the individual screening your resume.
Right. The only time I would say that it can be really good to say go back to 2001 is, like, let's say you're applying for a very specific industry. You want to go for an asset management company, or something like that. And in 2002, you worked for BlackRock. Put that on there. Don't rob yourself of making that connection, because that can be something where in the summary you actually write, security leader or whatnot with direct experience working in asset management. You better have that on there, or else they're going to go, no, you don't. I don't see it anywhere on here. So if there's a connector, even if it is 20 years ago and it's something that's really an outlier, you probably want to figure out a way to keep it in there, but you probably don't elaborate necessarily too much at all on the job you did.
Okay. So I want to, start queuing up your questions. I know it's 5 o'clock and we promised an hour, so I want to be respectful of Joe's time, but if you got any questions, queue them up. I want to back up 1 second here and look at the actual resume templates that are available to everybody, these 3. And I might drop Stefan and or Jose's in here. It looks like people are asking about them because they looked good.
Absolutely.
Stefan said Stefan says, yeah, you can share it. It's already on YouTube, right? So the internet knows, Stefan. So, Joe, so for the cyber example 1 short, cyber example 2 long, and home lab, who, like what categorical type of candidate should use which resume so they know which one is most appropriate for them?
Okay, well, that's a good question. So, for example, the first one that we just looked at, there's some things in there that I would not advise. Really, what I was using for that was to show how we can take number 1, the short one that we just looked at, turn it into number 2 to where you're trying to stretch it out. Click number 2 real quick, because I think that this applies mostly to people that are either making a career transition or have been very active in their training. They're coming out of school, they're involved in different projects or whatnot. If you scroll down to the second page on this one, you'll see a whole lot of white space. There we go. Cybersecurity projects, though. This is your opportunity, because the rest of this job that this person has here doesn't necessarily have a lot of the opportunity for buzzwords. they were already on the second page. You know, their experience extended into the second page. Use that space. You're already there. Give yourself an opportunity to be very direct and elaborate, because someone might look at this and go, man, this is a really interesting blend of projects. There's a whole lot of cross-site scripting in here. But, you know, like, I wouldn't have thought that from the first page. It's an opportunity to really expand without feeling like, well, I already had a second page, you know, or I already comfortably was there. Let me use this space to continue telling my story. And then if you scroll back up, you'll see something that I did with the certifications and the technologies, because before, or the areas of expertise, I'm sorry.
Oh,
before,
here. Yeah.
Those were all in paragraph form. So just to spread those out a little bit, I didn't do any columns or anything. I typed the first line, and then I hit tab, and I just continue to use tab. Once you start messing with all these, like, insert a column or whatnot, I'll be honest, Jerry, I'm not a word expert whatsoever. Tab is my friend. Up in the top left corner, you'll see Format Painter of your Word documents. Format Painter is a great way to just take all your, you know, sections that you've done before. If you want to repeat it, you highlight those sections. Then you just highlight the section you want to look just like it. It does it for you in 2 seconds. But the security education and professional training, you might have an education section by itself. You might have a professional training section by itself. The reason I combined these was strictly for formatting and structure and making things fit. So what I recommend is you start to put together a profile without worrying about how pretty it is. Don't worry about making things fit, but get all the content that you want in there, and then figure out, how can I make all this stuff fit to flow well and not bleed over to where I have one word taking up an entire white space, you know? Just for scannability.
Yeah, so let me back out really quick. So the first one is more junior level, example 1, short, example 2, long, maybe career pivot, and then or transitioning military, right? And then home lab, level 3. Who might this one be for?
Well, the home lab, I mean, this is another example of a way to keep it very short and sweet, but you can still actually showcase in a succinct way that you are actively working. I mean, there's so many templates I probably could send you over the next couple of days that we can use for all kinds of backgrounds. These are just little examples, and these are, in my opinion, non-sexy examples. These are not things that you're trying to figure out a way to reinvent the wheel. You're just getting to the point. You're getting information when not overselling yourself either.
Yeah, and I like it. I recommend everybody go and pull all 3 of these resume templates and have them available. But I do tell people this: if you don't have the cert yet, you don't have Security Plus yet, you don't have OSCP yet, but you are actively studying, put it on your resume. It's an interesting talking point, but put that you're testing in whatever, in fall 2021, or scheduled exam in, whatever, June 2021. Like, it's not misrepresenting it by having it on there. And it's an interesting talking point. It's an eye-catching thing. It works for the scanning tools and stuff like that. So don't really, a resume is supposed to be like packaging on the product that is you, right? You're advertising yourself. And that's what the consumer, the customer, which is the hiring manager and HR, that's what they get to look at to see if they want to buy you or not. Right. So that's, if you really melt it down. Okay. So if anyone needs the link to the resume templates, let me know. I'll drop it in chat again. We're going to do some quick fire Q&A, Joe. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So we got some good questions here. All right. So B Mitchell here, something like HackTheBox or Home Lab. HackTheBox sets up a lot of the infrastructure for you, right? So you're just focused on the key skills. Home Lab, you got to do IT, networking, all this other stuff, plus the actual skill set. Is one weight heavier than the other?
I wouldn't say it's weight heavier than the other, but people, I think, are more aware of HackTheBox than what goes into a home lab. Personally, I've been asking questions for the last year, like, what is in your home lab? What do you do in a home lab? Like, how do you put it together? And what's the purpose of it? HackTheBox, we kind of already know that, for the most part. So I don't think that one of them necessarily outweighs the other. I think that they can be equally valued to your audience, depending on who your audience is. But, there's certain jobs that you would go for that HackTheBox is probably not going to help you that much, to whereas a home lab, you might be doing some things in a home lab that are more applicable to the work that you're actually trying to go for, as opposed to HackTheBox. But it's such a sort of a globally known thing. It's a shared camaraderie between a lot of people. So you might actually have a hiring manager that's huge into HackTheBox, and that's a connector. That's something that really catches their attention right off the bat.
Okay, great. What about university brand matter? Now, Bala had asked a question earlier, so I think what is being referenced here is one's personal skills or university. Oh, okay, so this is a different question. So basically, the age-old question of higher ed degree versus hands-on work experience.
Well, that's such a great topic that everybody's arguing about. I made a mistake. This poor girl, she posted a job saying, security analyst must have a bachelor's degree, and I commented, hey, with my English degree, can I get this job? And everybody piled on. I had to write this girl and apologize because it opened up a can of worms that a lot of people are stressed about, because you have so many people that are great fits for security jobs that got out of school, they got an IT job, they went into the military. I mean, good gracious, if you can get a top secret clearance in a job, and you're trying to apply for an insider threat role, I'd say you're pretty qualified to not be a risk. But if you don't have a degree, over someone that gets a cybersecurity degree that may not even give any practical knowledge, the point is, you do have to have a degree for some of these companies. There's no way around it. If it says you need a degree, take it with a grain of salt. Trust me when I say that many of them say we want it. It's great if you got it, but the hiring manager couldn't care less. I also think something I see, don't put B.S, put Bachelor of Science or Bachelor. There are hooks in the tracking system that, say you apply and it asks, it looks to see if you have a degree. If you write B.S, it may not catch it. You actually may not register as someone that actually has a degree. I always recommend spelling that out for people on there. But if you're going to a big company with a tracking system, the university may carry more weight while you're applying than the personal skills, even though behind the scenes, the manager definitely cares more about the skills.
Yeah, and one of the audience members actually shared, kind of similar to what you said, I'm sorry, this is an anonymous LinkedIn user, that, people know HackTheBox and you can show badges on your LinkedIn profile. And, home lab can mean many things. It can mean a single laptop running, Nmap off of it. That's your home lab. Or you could have like a $30,000 insane, Cisco geared home lab. So, I guess if you're going to put home lab, maybe expand a bit on what is in the home lab, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. If you have home lab and HackTheBox, I would lead out with HackTheBox. Anything that's really registering as oh yeah, I know what that is. That's a security thing. Just remember, most of the jobs you're applying to, the person on the other end of that resume is not a security recruiter. It's not a security recruiter. There are people out there like myself and my team that this is what we do all day, so we're just going to know it. If you're not a security or an IT recruiter and you get an application that says all the stuff you've got in your home lab, they may not know, but HackTheBox should be much more well known.
Yeah. Quick hit right here, Joe. If you're foreign national, I mean, what's the situation for foreign nationals getting cyber jobs in the U.S. right now?
That's a transitional thing. Last year, there was obviously some kind of new regulations. It really depends on what your work authorization is. Certain countries have a much better time getting different work authorizations that are going to work out. The larger companies tend to actually have the ability to support different work authorizations. Absolutely, you can definitely get jobs in the United States, but it's very tough unless you're here. You have to be here. I know a lot of people that hit me up from different countries. Hey, can you get me a job? And I'll tell them very point blank, it's darn near impossible for me personally to get you a job in America while you're in Poland, or something like that. You need to be here. The thing that you can do then, though, there are so many companies here that have offshore teams. You don't even have to be in that country. You can just be in that time zone now. So researching which companies might actually have an offshore team, the best way you do that, you find a job that you like in America, you also look up that same company, same job title, and you put your country in on LinkedIn, and it will populate if there are 5, 6 people that are in the same exact region. It's a way to basically do some research and find out, oh yeah, this company's hiring over here. I've got a shot with this company. I'm going to zone in on this company instead of just casting a big net.
Yeah. We got a question from John here, and this is an interesting one. Essentially what it boils down to is, does the school you went to mattered? right? So if you went to Arizona State versus going to Western Governors versus Georgia Tech versus Charleston Community College, does the school matter if you have, I mean, I would argue that even getting the cyber degree isn't necessarily a prerequisite for a job in cyber, but let's just talk about schools. How do people view schools, Joe?
Good question. I do think that so far we have not seen too many schools that have just a universally great reputation for awesome cyber programs or bachelor programs. I think a lot of the programs, I've had many people that I've tried to get jobs for, they just don't have the experience yet because those degree programs are not giving a lot of practical skill opportunities. It's a lot of conceptual stuff a lot of times. I don't think school title really matter, where you went to school when it comes to cyber degrees. There are some schools, for example, Champlain College up in Vermont. They specialize heavily in digital forensics. That matters. If I get an application from someone there, they've been trained literally by people that are digital forensics professionals, very likely people that are actively working for companies that specialize in DFIR. They're getting really relevant training. That matters. If someone gives me a cybersecurity degree from UMUC or WGU or Utica College or any other school, I personally don't feel like there's too many differentiators. Penn State has a good reputation. Obviously, they got the link up with the NSA. You gotta get NSA accredited, so to speak. That's pretty cool and a difference maker, but I don't think it really matters that much, to be honest.
I just want to give a shout out to Dakota State University, where I have 2 degrees from. They are NSA accredited if you're looking for a good program. I just want to pull this in. Mr. Pimperlickley, sorry if I butchered that, but basically he's got an extreme value out of this, Joe, and he's pretty confident that he's going to get that job, and it's because of some of the lessons that he took away from you today. So,
good luck.
Yeah, man. It always feels good when I see stuff like this. Here's another one. Do you consider ISACA CPE credits to add value to a resume? I mean, I'm not the recruiter, but my initial thought is if you have ISACA CPE credits, that means you have an ISACA certification. That would be more important on the resume than what your CPEs are currently.
Yeah, no, I think that if you're lacking in other content, like if that's something that you feel like is the backbone of what you bring to the table that's relevant for the job, fine. Maybe put some different things on there. But I think that if you've got enough experience that really embodies the story already, the credits don't necessarily have to be on there, but it just kind of depends on your background. I mean, I think that, also if it's going to help, if it's going to bleed onto another page because you do it, get rid of it.
Yeah. I just want to call. So Robert Drysdale, thanks for calling this out. Like I literally randomly said, I said Arizona State maybe a minute ago, but maybe I said University of Arizona. It doesn't matter. Like I was just making up university names. So apparently they actually do have a good cyber ops program. So thank you, Robert, for calling that out. So, I get these questions too occasionally, but, are you expecting them to be able to do data structures and algorithms? So basically like, sophomore, junior year, computer science type stuff, like deeper level programming where you understand how to do software engineering in a security role, like a pen tester?
Definitely not required, but I can tell you the market, what I've seen over the last 18 months, good gracious, there is such a shift in, hey, give me somebody that understands code. Someone that can look at code, someone that can jump into our increasing focus on DevSecOps and actually is going to participate in different, projects or whatnot that come from a understanding of computer science. I actually would, to be honest with Jerry, I would recommend people go get a computer science degree more times than not with a cybersecurity degree right now. I feel like the skill sets translate much more. You're going to learn different languages. I told my wife my entire time my son was born, I figured I needed to get him to learn Spanish. It's Python. I'm going to get him to learn Python. That's the language of his future. Yep. Because there are so many unrelated jobs 2 years ago. Network. I worked a network security automation role the other day where they want someone to come in with a strong network engineering background but have Python. Very, very minimal population out there that actually has that experience. And so, no, not required. Probably benefit you in many ways, and it's something that if you're going for a role where they mention more of the software engineering background, you can build on that as your college coursework to kind of expand and show that's where you got the experience.
All right. For the ISACA question, Mr. Yoshi throws some gratitude to you, Joe. So thank you, Joe. Yes. Larry's got a question, and this is a good one. So CCDC, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, Joe, but okay. So for those who are not aware, CCDC it's like college sports, except instead of athletic sports, it is blue team, red team simulations where the schools have a blue team and they compete against other schools at competitions where the other schools are blue teams. And then there's one red team, usually comprised of, pretty awesome professionals who then attack those blue teams, and you have to keep services up for points. So it's very, very much a sport at the collegiate level. How do recruiters and hiring managers look at that type of thing? Because this is relatively new. I mean, this is only probably less than 10 years old.
Yeah, no, I actually, though, I think if you're fresh out of school, I mean, I want somebody that I know is on the tail end of being competitive. I really think cybersecurity, you have to be competitive to want to stop somebody or to want to beat somebody. The problem with the cyber defense kind of scenarios is this big focus on purple teaming over the last few years. You got a real divide between the defenders who are usually a little bit less advanced, with what they know is happening. I think pen testers, they got time, they're going to usually get in. So there's historically been a pretty big divide between blue and red teams. I'm seeing a great transition there. I mean, a lot of focus on camaraderie. Guys, let's lay all the cards on the table. We're all here with the same purpose. If you're jumping straight from cyber defense competitions, you make a lot of sense to get into a SOC that is actually dedicated to building relationships with the attackers. So I would put that all day on your resume if you're going for a cyber defense position. Absolutely.
Yeah. And personally, as a hiring manager, even if you're coming in with, for a GRC job or an audit job, which is really not on that level, to me, for me, when I hire, I can teach you certain things, right? But like passion, interest, personal initiative, like if you're doing CCDC, it means that you're not just slogging your way through a degree program because the industry pays well and you're looking for a payday. Like you care about it, you're interested in it. And on top of it, I know that you're going to know certain terms and terminology and conventions already, especially in a SOC role. So definitely good. I want to call this question out, Joe. Should you apply to a position where you don't meet most of the requirements? I can't, I know what you're going to say, Joe. And I just want to start off by saying, I can't hammer hard enough the answer you're about to give because I know what you're going to say. So please, should you apply when you don't meet all the requirements?
No, not at all.
Yeah, my foot. Come on, Joe.
No, I got a job description a couple weeks ago, and we looked at it, but the first thing we said is to the manager, you have to change this job description. No wonder you're calling us right now. No wonder you haven't filled this thing in 3 months. So many job descriptions are copy paste from the last time they filled the job a year ago with that title. The job's very different from what they're looking for. HR just copy paste. HR may have even written it. We do, our company actually spends a lot of time rewriting job descriptions for our clients. They'll come to us and ask for the resume says I need 6 years of experience. They go, I really want an up-and-comer, somebody that, probably doesn't think they have a shot at the job. Well, can we rewrite this for you? And then you don't really probably need us anymore. Give us a couple $100 or something like that. Don't pay us 10 grand to go find you a junior SOC analyst. Just change this job description. So absolutely, if you feel like it's something that you can do pretty quickly, that your resume at least can speak to something. Other thing, Jerry, if a company is really dedicated to security and hiring, they've got other stuff. I've gotten so many applications over the years that I said, hey, not a fit for the role you applied to, but guess what? I've got something coming up in a week. Absolutely could be a fit. Or I don't have a role with this client, but I just found out about another organization that's got a junior program or something like that. You might not get a response, but you wasted a minute going after the job? I think give it a shot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you can see like my green screen here is starting to flake out. We got just one more question here, Joe. And thank you for staying late. And thank you to all the people who stayed on the stream. We were at 96 people. We've been steadily about 80 people in the audience today, Joe. So, you own a lot of certifications or anything really. When should you put it on the resume versus directing someone to another resource like LinkedIn?
Oh, I think be selective on your certifications, but include them on the resume. There's no guarantee anyone's going to click your LinkedIn or see it. If you've got 3 to 4 hammer certifications that you know are just kind of globally recognized, put those on the resume at least. You don't need to put all of them. You know, if you've got it's 10 years of experience in a CISSP, you don't really need to put your CompTIA A+ on your resume. That's fine. Leave that off. But put your CISSP. Don't assume someone's going to use LinkedIn to find that out about you. You're the security investigator. A lot of recruiters are not. They are taking it at face value. Oh, this guy doesn't have any certifications. I would definitely recommend putting at least the really strong, relevant ones on there.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me start closing out. Real quick before we close out, I just want to call people's attention to this live stream that we'll be doing in, I don't know, it looks like my face is frozen, but we'll be doing this live stream here on March 18th. We're interviewing Jay Davey, Brandon Poole, and Eric Capuano panel style on critical skills for SOC and IR professionals. These guys are all awesome top tier SOC analysts, if you want to call them analysts. Like, they are the blue of the blue. Okay. And we're going to ask them, what do you guys need to know? How do you do it? What are they looking for? And it's going to just be a great stream. So please, go set a reminder, join us, whatever. I'll be blasting it all over social media anyway, so you won't miss it. Okay. So
will I. Those guys are so candid. Those guys are so they lay it all out there for you, and they really tell it like it is. I mean, that's a good trio you got there, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty excited about it. I was happy that they were all able to participate. So let me close out. Joe, if people wanted to sync with you or connect in any way, what's the best way for folks to know about Joe?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. I started to do the Discord thing at one point and realized I was a little out of place with some of it, but I still have actually some access there. LinkedIn is a great way to get in touch with me. My email, I'm happy to share my email as well. It's just jhudson@huntsource.io. I'm pretty much always available. I think, Jerry, you've probably received a lot of very late emails from me over the years.
Yeah.
But if anybody reaches out to me, if you have questions, I definitely will always try to get back to people. And, if I miss you and I don't respond within a couple of days, ping me again. You're not bothering me. And I'll let you know if I can be of help. I'm always happy to take a look at resumes, but, definitely I'm a father to a 6-year-old maniac. So
yeah,
some days are going to be hit or miss, more so than others.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you to all of you who attended today. I saw a lot of nice comments in the comments about how much people appreciated it, how much you helped them. So Joe, you really made an impact today. So thank you for coming on, and thanks for being part of this.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody for the questions and the time. Take my advice with a grain of salt. Talk to other experts in this field. There's a lot of advice. Take their advice with a grain of salt. But don't put too much pressure on yourself to make a perfect thing. And if you think you're really close to perfect, send me your resume. I'll do my best to get you there as well as we can.
All right. That sounds like a plan. All right, everybody. Thanks. And until next time, stay secure.
Thanks, Jerry.